Welcome. We have here with us James Patrick O'Donoghue, candidate for mayor for the city of Lawrence. He's not your traditional candidate. He's been an inventor, he's worked in urban planning, and he's helped revitalize Essex Street. Thank you for being here, James.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Great. So, one of the questions that I think people have is, what has inspired you to run for office?
Well, the inspiration that came to me was that it hasn't mattered who the mayor has been for the last 60 years. And I'm going to be honest about this. I'm going to be a little critical, perhaps. But no one has addressed the issue of rebuilding the tax base of the city of Lawrence since the mills moved away, the textile mills. And it's very important because those textile mills paid such a large amount of taxes that the tax burden on the homeowners was relatively small. And since they've left, what's happened is the tax burden on homeowners picked up and businesses picked up because the state now has to kick in, and the federal government, money into Lawrence to pay for services that the city used to be able to afford on its own. And having been involved in urban planning, I know what can be done to change the situation in Lawrence. If you look at South Boston, the waterfront, they call it the seaport area, that was empty for 30 to 40 years from urban renewal. It was just a wasteland. They used it for parking lots. And what happened is the state and the city of Boston got together and some federal money came in, and they built the Silver Line, which is just an electric bus, but it's underground. It's part of the subway system in Boston now. And after that, private developers looked at the waterfront in a different way because they could see the potential for putting up high-rise buildings there. And if you look at the waterfront now, it's filling up very quickly with high-rise buildings, and the city of Boston has all that tax revenue that they didn't have before. We have the west side of Broadway in Lawrence, which is very underutilized in terms of what it could be. And that is an area where you could build high-rise buildings, but you're not going to do that in Lawrence, and no one's going to come in and do it unless you do like with the Silver Line. You build a transit system that attracts them, and you have to build one that also has a high-speed connection to Boston. We have 110,000 commuters on our beltway in this area here that travel to Boston on a workday. And they are waiting hours in traffic both ways. They're using a lot of gas. They pay for a lot for parking when they get down there. They could actually save money if we had them get on above the existing railroad tracks that we have now, used as a right-of-way, into our downtown and speed them off to Boston. The thing is that this is
if I can interrupt,
yes.
How would that be different from the MBTA that we have now?
Well, the MBTA commuter rail
Yes.
is just a regular train, and even the Acela isn't very high speed. I would like to see magnetic levitation, and in the United States, they have been magnetic levitation projects proposed. What's happened is that the congressmen that have proposed them have proposed projects that are hundreds of miles long, have no commuter base, and therefore they're economically not feasible. So then they end up getting turned down before Congress could even vote on them. They don't even get out of the committee with a negative.
So if I can get it right, so you're essentially saying that that one of your projects is to, whether it's the magnetic train or the commuter rail, to get more people to Boston faster, so you can grow the tax base.
That's
Is that
right.
what you're saying?
That's part of it, and also in providing a transit system in the city of Lawrence for the people here. In Memphis, Tennessee, they have a system, and in some other cities where the taxi cab companies are subcontractors with the transit authority. Right now, we have, what, 150 taxi cabs or so. Under the plan I have, there would probably be more than 1,000 taxi cabs in Lawrence. And what they do in Memphis is you call a taxi to your home, and it comes, picks you up with your transit pass, takes you to a nearest bus kiosk, and they use bus rapid transit. I'm talking about using rail, and in some cases we could even use monorail in the city to connect into it. Then you get off at the other end and you take another cab. Right now, if you take a taxi cab, you're all over the city before you would get dropped off. And if someone has children and they have to walk to a bus stop in the winter on Prospect Hill, there's no sidewalks to walk on. It's all, you know how it is in the winter here. There's just no room. So have them picked up at their door, taken to the nearest neighborhood train station, and then sent off from there. And I did draw out a plan for a monorail in Lawrence, which would work.
Well, I think this is a good segue, because you mentioned 1,000 taxi cabs, and I think, Lawrence, 6 square miles, that'd be a public safety issue. But moving away from the taxi cab idea into public safety, I think one of the biggest issues, not the biggest, but one of the big issues that Lawrence faces and a lot of people talk about is public safety. If you were to become the new mayor of Lawrence, you would be in charge of the police force and appointing a new chief of police. So what would you be looking for in a new chief of police?
Well, I really need to back up for a moment there, because as far as the public safety issue goes with taxi cabs, that isn't a foreseeable problem. There won't be a public safety problem with that. There isn't one in Memphis with it, and other cities that have it. As far as the police go, this is another thing too with the transit system. If you're speeding people off to Boston, the city can collect a toll from it, so can the city of Boston. We can use that toll money, and if you get $100,000 a day coming into the city in additional revenue from something like that, you can certainly hire 60 more policemen in 3 or 4 months' time and put them on the street, as well as having the transit police. It all works together. I want to get the best chief, and I'm sure all the candidates are going to say that. So there's a process you go through, and everybody is different in how they evaluate who's good for the job. I happen to be the son of a Lawrence policeman who is deceased, but so I grew up knowing that how the police department works to some extent. And the majority of the policemen are good. We have had some problems in Lawrence, no denying that, and very serious problems.
And I think we'll get to that point. But initially, so what exactly would you be looking for in a new chief of police? Do you want someone that right now is on the inside, someone from the outside, bilingual? Like what exactly are you looking for?
Bilingual is a must. I really think that's a must for a chief of police in a community like ours. The other thing is, as far as whether it's inside or outside, I think that because each individual is different, depends on who the inside individual may be and what their track record is on the police department. That's part of it. Also, I prefer to have someone with some kind of a military experience, a veteran, to be hired as the next chief of police.
Okay. Going back, you were talking about sort of respect. So I think one of the issues that the community faces is not just sometimes there's a lack of respect towards police officers, but a lot of people feel that there's a lack of respect from police officers towards members of the community. How would you, as mayor, address that?
Well, I think there has to be penalties for police that don't treat the public fairly. But you don't want false accusations thrown at police either. There are some police in the community that have had a bad reputation, I guess, that follows them. And I don't know that it's true or not. That's why I would like to see the documentation behind any kinds of accusations and weigh that. I don't want to just evaluate someone without having any evidence, not just based on hearsay.
Moving on to a different subject, education. Right now, the city education system has been taken over by the state. We have a receiver superintendent who has been quoted as saying that the state might be here for 7 years. We have a school committee that's somewhat defunct. It's still elected by the public, but the mayor currently doesn't attend those meetings, and they don't really have a lot of input into what goes on in the schools. Under your administration, what would you be doing to try to address that?
Well, one of the things you're talking about here is a charter issue with the mayor being on the school committee. A lot of educators don't believe that a mayor should be on the school committee. I tend to agree with those educators. Whether the mayor's position becomes an appointed one on the committee is something to be weighed, something to be studied, or whether there should be some at-large representation on the school committee. I do believe that the fundamental problem in the schools isn't with the teachers or the education so much as it is with the family life that the kids have. And that family life goes back to unemployment and having to rely on a system. You know, it's very unfair when you, in today's world, when so many people are working for less than a living wage, and even people that work for the city of Lawrence that have to have Section 8 housing when they work for the city. That's a disgrace that happens. There should be a living wage job for people, and we need to create a lot of jobs. I want to create the jobs because what happens is the children do go to school, and they bring with them the feelings of their parents. The parents are locked out of getting out of where they are because if they try, in many cases, to better themselves and they start to earn more, then the services get cut out from underneath them. So it's almost like a form of slavery to be under this oppression that they can't get out of, where they can't better themselves. We can look at all kinds of stories and examples about people that came up and rose out from the bottom. But we need to make it easier for people to do that. And it does transcend into the home life when there aren't enough good jobs in the community.
So besides that, what I'm getting from you is that to fix education, you would try to get more jobs into the city.
That's right.
Okay.
Is
there anything else that you think would get more parents involved, business leaders involved in the education system?
But again, I believe that the parents will become more involved when their own lives are better.
Okay. Well, moving on, talking about the mood in the city, there's been, for the past 3 decades, there's always been sort of an antagonism between North and South, Anglo and Latino. Now it seems to be different political camps against each other. Like you support this person, and I support this other person. Day one of an O'Donoghue administration, what would you be doing to try to build bridges between the different communities and create sort of unity inside the city?
Well, I don't see that there'd be any disunity under my administration. I happen to be a part of the multicultural community. I have, my grandfather from Ireland was a quarter Spanish. My wife is from Peru. She's Spanish and 1/4 Chinese. I have nieces and nephews in the Dominican Republic, in Argentina, and in Peru. I have cousins in Mexico. So I feel like I'm part of the community. I happen to get along great with other candidates that are running for mayor. I don't see myself as being polarizing in the sense that I'd be favoring one community over another. No, I think we can all work together. This city of Lawrence is for everyone that lives here. And some people disagree with some of my views on that because even if someone is here, and I'll say it illegally, I feel that they still should be treated with respect in that. The reason I say that, and going back to education for a moment, you know that there are a lot of people that want to go to college, and and they're illegal aliens. There's this argument about whether they should go to college or not.
Right, right. Usually
And
call them undocumented immigrants.
Okay,
Yes,
that's,
everybody,
because really no one's illegal, God made us all.
Right.
But the thing is that I would rather that they went to college for our future and for our children's future than to see them in a situation where they're struggling because they didn't get an education, especially in an economy where even not just in Lawrence, but across the United States, the dropout rate is too high for high school students. If we have a high dropout rate, it's going to affect our economy and our future. We need to do all we can to help every young person who wants to be here, who wants to be a citizen, who wants to work and wants to move forward with their life. So, I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did. Talking about individuals, this I think is your first time running for office. There might be individuals across the city that might not know you. There's an opportunity for you to, for anybody watching the video that's undecided, why should they vote for you?
Well, you should vote for me if you're tired of what's been going on for the last 4 years, and if you want to see a change, and if you want to see Lawrence change, not just a change in the mayor, but a change in the city. It's really important that we change Lawrence. The people here are great people. They really don't want to be in the situation they're in. So many of them are struggling. They find that they can't get out of poverty. They can't seem to break from the shackles. There are too many young people that have the attitude that, well, I'm not going anywhere anyway. And so they don't have the ambition because they're locked out of the bigger system. We need to create jobs in this community. That's the most important thing. And rebuild the tax base so that we don't have someone from outside telling us how we can spend our money on education, on police, on firefighters, so that we don't have to reach out being poverty-stricken all the time. The excuses have been going on for 60 years. It's time to end the excuses and to elect someone who's going to change Lawrence, and I'm the person that can do that.
Could you also let them know if they have questions for you, they want to get involved, how do they reach out to you?
Well, they can call my phone number at 978-258-2804, or they can go on Facebook and look for James Patrick O'Donoghue. They can also email me at jimpodonoghe@gmail.com.
Great. Is there anything else that you think that we perhaps have missed in the discussion that you want to point out?
Well, I don't think there's anything quite that I want to say. There's some things I'm waiting to hear more information on before I speak out on them.
Okay. All right. Well, James, thank you so much for coming here today, and good luck in your campaign.
Thank you very much.
Okay.